Good morning.
Good morning.
Parliament is resumed. I'll invite the Honourable Deputy Governor to grace us with prayers.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker and members. Let us pray. Almighty God, from whom all wisdom and power are derived, we beseech thee so to direct and prosper the deliberations of the Parliament now assembled, that all things may be ordered upon the best and surest foundations, for the glory of thy name and for the safety, honor, and welfare of the people of these islands. Bless our sovereign, King Charles III, William, Prince of Wales, and all the royal family. Give grace to all who exercise authority in our Commonwealth, that peace and happiness, truth and justice, religion and piety may be established among us. Especially we pray for the Governor of our islands, the Premier, the Speaker of the Parliament, the Leader of the Opposition, Ministers of the Cabinet, ex officio members, members of the Parliament, the Chief Justice, and members of the Judiciary, that we may be enabled faithfully to perform the responsible duties of our high office. All this we ask for thy great name's sake. Let us say the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. The Lord bless us and keep us. The Lord make his face shine upon us and be gracious unto us. The Lord lift up the light of his countenance upon us and give us peace now and always. Amen.
Please be seated.
Administration of oaths or affirmations.
None.
Reading by the Honourable Speaker of messages and announcements.
None.
Presentation of petitions.
None.
Presentation of papers and of reports.
There don't appear to be any.
Questions to Honourable Ministers and members of the Cabinet. The elected member for West Bay Central to ask the Honourable Minister of Youth, Sports, Heritage and Home Affairs. Question number 14.
Madam Clerk, before we proceed with the questions, given the time, may I invite the Honourable Premier to move the customary suspension of standing order so that questions may be asked of ministers after the hour of 11 o'clock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move the suspension of Standing Order 23, 7 and 8 to allow for question time to commence after the hour of 11 a.m.
Thank you. The question is that Standing Order 23, 7 and 8 be suspended in order that questions may be asked of ministers after the hour of 11 o'clock. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, no. I believe the ayes have it. Accordingly, Standing Order 23, 7 and 8 are suspended. Minister, you may proceed with the question, number 14.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask question number 14, standing in my name, to the Honourable Minister of Youth, Sports, Heritage and Home Affairs. Can the Honourable Minister state the government's intentions with respect to the Anti-Sexual Harassment Bill?
The Honourable Minister for Youth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Through you, the answer. It is the intention of this government that the Anti-Sexual Harassment Bill be brought to the Parliament in January of 2025.
Supplementaries? No supplementaries, Madam Clerk. Question number 15.
The elected member for Prospect. to ask the Honourable Minister of Border Controls, Labour and Culture, Sustainability and Climate Resilience and Wellness. Question number 15.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister has not arrived as yet. He had a meeting, and perhaps you could put it down till at the end. He should be here by then, hopefully. I would like to answer it.
I think then there should be a motion to defer it.
I so move.
You will need a seconder, sir.
Jay.
Mr. Speaker, I second that.
Honourable Member for Prospect, I am gathering from the Speaker that you wish to move to withdraw the question.
Mr. Speaker, yes.
Would you please do so?
Mr. Speaker, I rise to withdraw the question.
You need to move a motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move a motion to withdraw question number 15 on the order paper, standing in my name to the elected member, to the Honourable Minister of Border Control, Labour and Culture, Sustainability and Climate Resilience and Wellness.
Is there a seconder?
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
The question is that parliamentary question number 15, standing in the name of the elected member for Prospect and directed to the Honourable Minister of Border Control, Labour, Culture, Sustainability and Climate Resiliency and Wellness be withdrawn. Those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. Accordingly, parliamentary question number 15 on today's order paper is withdrawn.
The Deputy Leader of the Opposition, elected member for Georgetown South, to ask the Honourable Premier. Question number 16.
I recognize the Honourable Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask the Honourable Premier and Minister of Education question number 16, standing in my name. Question: can the Honourable Premier and Minister of Education update the Parliament on how the impact of the Summer School 2024 catch-up programme on each of its 280 participants is being tracked to ensure that levels of attainment are improved as a result of participation in the summer school?
Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to the Honourable Deputy Leader of the Official Opposition for her question. The answer: the Summer School 2024 catch-up programme has made significant strides in addressing educational gaps and its impact on the 208 participants. It is being tracked through both intermediate measures per the Code of Practice for Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions programs in schools and the long-term frameworks to ensure sustained improvement in the teen levels, such as summative assessments in English and mathematics. School intervention programs are being monitored and tracked by staff and the Special Education Needs Coordinator and Senior Leadership Team. In English, students' read and write ink and fresh start attainment are recorded and measured every 6 weeks. Mathematics intervention through MathsWhiz is measured by improvement in mathematics age, and this can be monitored continuously by teachers and senior leadership on the said platform. Framework for continual progress checks. Key term checkpoints. December 2024, that's this month. Initial assessments will be conducted in December. They will offer insights into students' application of the summer learning gains in the regular academic setting. In April of next year, mid-year, PIRA, Progress for Reading Assessment, and POMA, Progress in Mathematics Assessment, will monitor ongoing progress and identify areas requiring additional support. Tracking tools and interventions. Access to ongoing resources like MathWiz, Fluency Tracker, tailored literacy interventions, as well as Read Write, Inc., Fresh Start, and On Track English ensures continuous support as well. Regular updates to parents and individualized progress plans help sustain motivation and monitor development. Learning support plans, LSPs, are updated in schools according to the Code of Practice to ensure that these documents support students in meeting their targets. This is done through classroom teachers and the Special Education Needs Coordinator, SINCO. Progress made during the summer school 2024. Mathematics. The use of tools like MathWiz demonstrated remarkable progress. On average, the whole cohort improved by 5.56 weeks in their math age over the 3-week period, surpassing the expected progress of 3 weeks. Notably, 68.5% of the participants made progress of at least 3 weeks or more. 5 hubs achieved or exceeded the target of 4.5 weeks improvement, with Red Bay Primary School leading at 8.1 weeks of progress. English. Students engaged with targeted interventions such as Read Write Inc., Fresh Start, and Track English achieved meaningful advancements, with 84% of the students progressing to higher modules despite the short duration of the program. Overall impact. In literacy, 84% of the students and 68.5% of the students in mathematics with complete and pre- and post-assessment data showed measurable improvements in their success scores. Confidence building was also reported, with 89.5% of the students expressing increased confidence in mathematics and English. A total of 98.3% of parents felt that the summer school had a positive impact.
Thank you, Honourable Premier. Supplementaries? The Honourable
Thank you.
Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
One supplementary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That's very good news. So happy to hear that, Premier and Minister of Education. So will this summer school program continue on every summer going forward?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, thanks to the Honourable Deputy Leader. I wish to also put on record, in case members lapsed, that it was the same said member who requested it, and the Minister of Education, Mr. Speaker, was indeed happy to acquiesce and move to the implementation stage. We're very happy with the results. Of course, education is a journey, and so until we get 100%, we're going to continue. I can certainly give a commitment for summer this year, as monies are in the education budget, to ensure that it's repeated and hopefully increase. My aspiration is that it could run for the entire summer. Obviously, we use the same teachers, and so we have difficulty with them also wanting to get a break. Mr. Speaker, especially after going through all we went through with COVID and other challenges that we had with the weather and not being in school and having to play catch up. I can't give beyond that, but I can say that I will be actively campaigning to ensure that we have a proper and fit education minister the next time. Hint, hint, member.
For the supplementaries? Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk.
The elected member for West Bay South to ask the Honourable Premier, question number 17.
I recognize the Honourable Deputy Leader of the Opposition. Oh, sorry. West Bay South.
Morning. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question number 17, standing in my name, to the Honourable Premier as Minister for Finance. Question: can the Honourable Premier provide an update as to whether there have been any amounts of funding that have been brought forward from the 2025 financial period to the 2024 period in the 2024-2025 budget since 31 October 2024? If so, please provide details of the same.
Honorable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to the member. Yes, we certainly can provide that information. Mr. Speaker, since the 31st day of October this year, there have been no amounts of funding that have been brought forward from the 2025 financial period to the 2024 period and the 2024-2025 budget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementaries? Next item, Madam Clerk.
Statements by the Honourable Ministers and members of the Cabinet.
I have authorized the Premier to make a statement in relation to the 2024 second supplementary appropriation. Madam Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as required by Section 11(6) of the Public Management Finance Act 2020 revision, I make this statement to members of this Honourable Parliament with respect to exceptional circumstances transaction that the Cabinet approved for the Minister of Education for the period 1st October to 30th October 2024. Such transactions, Mr. Speaker, were approved pursuant to Section 11(5) of the PMFA. This statement provides details of the aforementioned transactions. TP 51, other educational and training assistance. Mr. Speaker, True for Youth has been undergoing some serious financial challenges for some time now. In 2023, the Cabinet approved a one-time grant to help alleviate the potential impact of the wider educational provisions across the island. True for Youth continues, Mr. Speaker, to face significant hardships, largely due to a decline in enrollment of over 19% since the new school year started in August of this year. This has resulted in an average class size of 6 students in grades 3 through 5. The school cannot increase tuition at this time and will have to make salary cuts and reduce staff if some other measures are not put in place. Due to the extenuating circumstances that True for Youth has found itself in, and considering the social impact on families it serves, it was befitting to assist in whatever way possible. This assistance, Mr. Speaker, was in the form of a one-time grant of $100,000 from the government. Therefore, approval is required under Section 11(5) of the PMFA 2020 revision to increase TP 51, other educational and training assistance, by $100,000. That's a scrivener's error, Mr. Speaker. It says 4, it should say 100,000. And decrease was taken from the wider CI central budget for 2024. CCO1, teaching of tertiary level professional and vocational programs. Mr. Speaker, the University College of the Cayman Islands recently implemented a new student information system. This multi-year project started in 2022. In November of 2023, during the audit of the accounts for the 2022 financial year, it was determined that funds spent on this capitalized project should have been reported as expenses or OPEX. The budget for 2024 was already close to being finalized, and $480,000 was included under EI 46, University of the Cayman Islands, for this new system. Funds must therefore be transferred from the capital budget to the operational budget to accommodate the proper accounting treatment for this new system, which was fully implemented this year. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, approval is now being required by Section 11.5 of the PMFA 2020 revision to increase CCO1, teaching of tertiary level professional and vocational programs, by, just 1 minute, Mrs. I beg your indulgence just to check a figure, please. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the abundance of caution, I will repeat that. Increase CCO1, teaching of tertiary level professional and vocational programs by 480,000. That's for the University College of the Cayman Islands. And decrease EI 46, University College of the Cayman Islands, by the same amount. So it was going from capital to operational. Mr. Speaker, thank you for allowing me to make this explanatory statement as it relates to exceptional circumstances which have resulted in supplementary appropriations being requested by the Minister of Education from 1st October to 30th of November 2024. Thank you, sir.
I also have a statement to be delivered by the Honorable Deputy Governor.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Mr. Speaker, I rise to address the findings of the Auditor General's report on the financial reporting of the Cayman Islands government for the year ending December 31st, 2023. Mr. Speaker, as head of the Civil Service, I am responsible for the performance of the Civil Service. I've never shied away from that responsibility, and I'm honored to lead the Civil Service. Mr. Speaker, I'm committed to ensuring that we build on our achievements, address challenges, and uphold the principles of accountability, transparency, and efficiency in managing public funds. This report reflects our collective progress in achieving these goals and provides a roadmap for us to continue strengthening our financial reporting regime. Mr. Speaker, I'm making this statement today because the Auditor General's report has received much publicity, and rightly so. The media plays a key role in promoting transparency and accountability. However, I believe that their role works best when their reporting is balanced. Reading some of the newer articles and listening to some of the comments on talk shows, I had to wonder if they were reading the same report. The audit report is well balanced. It's a well-balanced report that sets out excellent progress being made in key areas, and also identifies areas of improvement. Today, I would like to take the opportunity to first and foremost acknowledge the positive development highlighted in the report, and to commend our hardworking public servants for the successes achieved. Mr. Speaker, the report notes that 44 of 46 public service entities, or 96%, submitted their financial statements to the Auditor General by the February 29th, 2024 deadline. Additionally, 39 of 46 audits, or 85%, were completed by the April 30th, 2024 deadline, and all 39 of those entities received unqualified opinions. Mr. Speaker, this means that at the time of reporting, no core government entity has received a qualified opinion in the past 5 years. And over the same period, only one SAGC received a qualified opinion. Mr. Speaker, this means that the public can have the highest confidence in the accuracy of the government financial statements. Mr. Speaker, these achievements are outstanding and deserve commendation. You must remember that not long ago, the former chair of the Public Accounts Committee threatened to jail CFOs because their accounts were not submitted on time. Just a few years later, that same chair gave CFOs awards for submitting their accounts on time. And this outstanding performance has continued. In her report, the Auditor General also recognized that the numbers of entities submitting annual reports alongside their financial statements has increased considerably, with 35% or 35 of them, or 76%, being submitted prior to the deadline. The report also notes an increase in the number of annual reports being laid in Parliament, with 22 of them laid by September the 30th, 2024. But certainly, Mr. Speaker, we are striving for higher numbers in this area as well. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I am confident that when the Auditor General reviews this area in 2024, near perfect compliance will have been achieved. Mr. Speaker, as you well know, the Auditor General and her team do a thorough job of scrutinizing the public service. And in doing so, they are a valued partner in our efforts to achieve world-class standards in transparency and accountability. Given our ambitions, we know that there's always room for improvement, and we depend on her office to highlight where those improvements need to be made. Mr. Speaker, a strong office of the Auditor General is a key component of our good governance machinery, and I work closely with the office and support the work of the Auditor General and her team. We acknowledge that the report notes the need for improvement in a few areas, including procurement activities. I've already discussed its findings with chief officers, and we will continue to make the required improvements to our processes. Today, I will speak to a few of our related initiatives. Mr. Speaker, speaking about procurement, the public service conducts, Mr. Speaker, between 1,600 and 2,000 procurement exercises per year for goods and services valued at $10,000 and above, with over 350 of them being valued at $100,000 and above. Therefore, while we aim for perfection, I am confident that the shortcomings identified in the report are not indicative of the norm, and our procurement regime is strong. In fact, Mr. Speaker, both the Auditor General and the Director of Procurement has assured me that procurement is not the major issue in our civil service. Our Director of Procurement has stated that we have one of the best, if not the best, procurement regimes in the region. The vast majority of time, we get procurements, including complicated procurements, right. The public can have confidence in our procurement regime, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our prime resource in making improvements to our procurement regime is the Central Procurement Office, the CPO. This office is responsible for administrating Procurement Act regulations, the Procurement Act and regulations, and the related code of conduct, as well as managing government online procurement platform and involving our procurement processes to better support the procurement function. In doing so, the office has created a help desk function to support those responsible for carrying out procurement exercises and performs regular reviews of projects on the electronic platform to provide feedback to project owners on ways that they can make improvements. The office also developed and refined useful templates for all procurement-related documents, including tender documents and business cases, and has developed guidelines, documents for procurement and contract management. Mr. Speaker, over the past few years, we have developed a key focus on capacity building through training and development to ensure that our staff are equipped to carry out their duties efficiently and effectively. There are a myriad of education and training options available to our staff that are either directly related to their roles or provide transferable skills. Therefore, in relation to the purchase of goods and services, staff can access procurement, contract management, project management, accounting, and fraud prevention training, to just to name a few, through our Civil Service College, the Central Procurement Office, the Strategic Reforms Implementation Unit, and third-party providers. The uptake on these opportunities is high and growing. In fact, just a few weeks ago, the Central Procurement Office hosted a 3-day workshop led by an expert in detecting and preventing contract and procurement fraud, which was attended by over 200 public servants. During this training, they learned how perpetrators of fraud in and outside the organization think and operate. This workshop is but one example of our commitment to improving the procurement process. Mr. Speaker, I want to highlight the importance of the Budget Transformation Initiative being spearheaded by the Minister of Finance and the Financial Secretary, the Minister and the team in the Ministry of Finance. As you know, the team is currently working with a consultant to convert our budget framework from an output-based budget that asks, what have we delivered to the country, to an outcome-based budget that asks, how have we impacted the country? Mr. Speaker, this will be the next evolution for the Cayman Islands government in our financial management reforms efforts. This transition will allow for improved financial reporting and accuracy in determining value for money, as we will be better able to measure our performance against a robust set of performance indicators to ensure how well we achieve the government policy goals. We expect that the 2027-2028 budget will be the first to be delivered under this new format. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, the findings of the Auditor General report are both a reminder of the challenges we face and a testament to our progress. As she has stated in the report, while there's always work to do to improve upon what went before, let me say that again, Mr. Speaker. While there is always work to do to improve upon what went before, we should not lose sight of the vast improvements that we have made over time to Cayman's public service, financial management, and reporting. I never read that anywhere in the media. The public service is resolute in its commitment to transparency, accountability, and a culture of consistent improvement. With the continued support of the government and the Auditor General, we will continue to build a public sector that operates with integrity and serves the best interests of the people of the Cayman Islands. Mr. Speaker, in the civil service, we believe that you can go from failure to success, but you cannot go from excuses to success. Finally, Mr. Speaker, our Auditor General, Ms. Sue Winsper, has announced that she will leave her post early next year. Mr. Speaker, the government and people of the Cayman Islands owe Ms. Winsper a debt of gratitude for the work she has performed during her time in office. She has tackled the difficult subject matters and made tough calls for change. She can be proud of the fact that she's leaving the financial management of the government in a much better place than she found it. We wish Ms. Winsper success in her next chapter and good health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask a quick clarification question under Standing Order 30, subsection 2.
Please proceed.
Honorable DG, I just want to double check. On the last page of the statement, first two lines, it says 27-28 budget. Is that meant to be 26-27 or 28-29?
Take your indulgence, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Deputy Governor.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, thank you. Mr. Speaker, good spot. It's actually 2829. Thank you.
Thank you, DG.
I've given permission to the Honorable Deputy Premier, to make two statements.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to make a brief clarifying statement regarding the recent government announcements concerning the various payments to civil servants and how these impact the statutory authorities and government companies which fall under the remit of the Ministry of Tourism and Ports. Mr. Speaker, you may recall that the government announced a 5% cost of living adjustment to be paid to all civil servants, which will take effect from January 2025. This measure is intended to address the disparity between the employees' salaries and the increasing cost of living caused by the rate of inflation in the Cayman Islands. In addition to the COLA, the government has also announced a one-time honorarium payment of $2,000 to each employee to be paid with salaries this month, December 2024. To provide timely relief to employees during the holiday season. Aside from these initiatives, the government further agreed to uplift the pay grades of P and Q on the salary scales to ensure that the minimum salary for any full-time, non-trainee employee is $3,000 per month. Following the government's announcement, Mr. Speaker, questions arose as to whether the SAGCs under the Ministry of Tourism would also be included in these payments. I'm pleased to confirm, Mr. Speaker, that all of the employees in these entities that fall under the Ministry of Tourism and Ports will be receiving the 5% cost of living allowance and the $2,000 honorarium payment. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, employees on grade P and Q will have their salaries adjusted to the minimum of $3,000 in line with the civil service. These include the Port Authority of the Cayman Islands, the Cayman Islands Airports Authority, Cayman Airways Limited, the Cayman Islands National Attractions Authority, the Cayman Turtle and Education Center. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to be a part of a government that is both sensitive to the challenges being faced by the employees and the bold efforts to provide the meaningful relief where possible. These actions demonstrate our unwavering commitment to supporting our workforce and ensuring that their contributions to the success of our country are valued and recognized. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll move on now to one other. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Moving on to my second statement, which is in regards to a New Year's Eve event. Mr. Speaker, I rise before this Honorable House to share some exciting news about an event that is being hosted by the Ministry of Tourism to celebrate the incoming New Year 2025. For the very first time, the Ministry and the Department of Tourism are sponsoring a New Year's Eve celebration on Seafarers Way in the heart of Georgetown. It is an event that promises to unite residents and visitors in a vibrant and inclusive showcase of Caymanian culture while celebrating the start of the new year. Mr. Speaker, this event represents a milestone as until now, celebrations on December the 31st have largely been driven by private sector. While we appreciate the efforts of private organizers, these events are often cost prohibitive for families or limited to private properties. Tickets to dinners and dances or similar style events can cost hundreds of dollars per person, not to mention the additional expense of childcare, as these types of activities rarely accommodate children. The reality, Mr. Speaker, is that many families simply cannot afford to participate in those celebrations, yet they too deserve a chance to come together, celebrate the new year, and create a lasting memory. This is why the Ministry of Tourism has stepped up to provide a free, accessible, and family-friendly alternative, ensuring that no one is excluded from the joy of the season, and everyone, regardless of their economic situation, can ring in the new year with joy, laughter, and a sense of fellowship and community. The event will be hosted by the Ministry and the Department of Tourism and is designed so that families can enjoy a range of activities suitable for all ages, including games and face painting, interactive arts and crafts, and a mini fireworks show offering a safe and spectacular fireworks display. Adding to the festivities will be food trucks and stalls offering a range of tasty Caymanian foods and performances by local DJs and musicians, blending authentic Cayman culture with lively energy and welcome in the 2025 in style. This will truly be a night for the entire family to enjoy side by side in a safe and welcoming environment. This initiative is not only a celebration, but also an opportunity to showcase local businesses and Cayman cuisine. Mr. Speaker, 2024 has been a difficult year for many in this country. Economic pressures, global uncertainties, and the demand of modern life have left many Caymanians facing all kinds of challenges. This event represents a gesture of goodwill from the Ministry of Tourism by offering an evening where everyone can come together, set aside their worries, and look forward together to the promise of a new year. But it's not just about celebration, it's also about stimulating economic activity by involving local vendors, food suppliers, and entertainers. We are creating opportunities for small businesses and to thrive during one of the busiest times of the year. This aligns with the government's broader commitment to supporting entrepreneurship and fostering a resilient economy. Moreover, Mr. Speaker, as one of the busiest periods for tourism, this event will serve as an additional attraction for visitors, showcasing the warmth, creativity, and vibrancy of our Caymanian culture. It is our way of saying to the world, this is who we are, come and celebrate with us. Mr. Speaker, the fact that this year's New Year's Eve falls on a Tuesday evening works perfectly, and no amendments to the liquor licensing regulations are required. The event will be able to continue beyond midnight until 2 a.m. Additionally, the vendor areas, stage, and entertainment zones have been strategically positioned to the southern end of Seafarers Way to avoid interference with the port activities and the service by our very memorialized Emsley Memorial Church. And Mr. Speaker, to add to this, I've spoken directly to the pastor at the church and let them be aware of the full activities, and they are in support, and have confirmed there would be no conflicts for the New Year's service. My intention is for this to be more than just a one-time event. I regard this as the beginning of what I hope will become a long-standing tradition, an annual celebration that brings people together, showcase our culture, and reminds us of the values that make our country strong. Mr. Speaker, I urge my colleagues in this House, as well as the wider community, to support this initiative and help to spread the word. I also encourage the public to attend, bring the children out to enjoy the activities. And I know I haven't had it in my statement, but the fireworks for the kids will be at 9 o'clock, because we're reminded that some children, depending on the age, will not be able to stay awake until midnight when the bigger fireworks will happen. So again, I encourage the public to attend and bring the children out to enjoy the activities, and this will be a time for us all to come together, celebrate responsibly, and welcome in the new year as a united community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That concludes the statements for today.
Personal explanations.
None.
Obituary, the ceremonial speeches.
Honorable members, as we convene today, let us take a moment to reflect on the lives and legacies of Caymanian men and women who have departed this world since our last meeting. Each of these individuals played a unique role in shaping our community, enriching our culture, and strengthening the bonds that unite us as a people. Whether through their service, their talents, or their unwavering commitment to family and community, they have left a mark that will endure for generations to come. Today, we honor their memory. We remember those who devoted themselves to public service, dedicating their lives to the betterment of our islands. Their leadership and vision continue to inspire us as we strive to fulfill our responsibilities in this chamber. We remember our elders whose wisdom and love served as the foundation of our homes and the compass for our traditions. Their teachings remain a source of guidance and strength for our people. We remember those who contributed to the arts, education, business, and countless other fields. Their achievements have not only brought pride to their families, but also advanced the progress and prosperity of our nation. Let us not forget those who worked quietly in their communities, often without recognition, to uplift the lives of others. Their humility and generosity remind us of the true spirit of Caymankind. As we pause to remember, let us also give thanks for the lives and celebrate the enduring legacy they have left behind. Let us commit ourselves to honoring their memory by continuing their work to build a society rooted in compassion, service, and unity. On behalf of this honorable House, I extend our deepest condolences to the families and loved ones of those we have lost. May you find solace in knowing that their contributions to our Caymanian story will never be forgotten. As we move forward with today's proceedings, let us carry with us a renewed sense of purpose and a reminder of the profound privilege we have to serve the people of these islands. May their souls rest in peace, and may their memory be a blessing to us all. I have, honorable members, the really sad duty to speak of one individual in particular who died suddenly recently. My dear friend, Tom Ramon, who was also a very close friend of the Leader of the Opposition and the Deputy Leader of the Opposition. And I can only say, a brother from another mother to the Member of Parliament for Georgetown West. We are all deeply saddened by his loss and publicly express our sincere condolences to his daughter Shanice, his sister Beryl, and his many siblings and extended family. I've known Tommy my entire life. We went to Cubs together. I became his scout leader. We went to Sunday school together. We went to school together. We attended Christian Endeavor together. Tommy is what the old people would have called a real character. Georgetown, those of us who are old enough to remember, Georgetown, I believe, has always had more characters than any of the other districts. And Tommy was definitely one of those characters. He held no high office, but he exercised massive influence in Georgetown politics. Although he came from what today they call Georgetown Central, up in the east, whatever you want to call it, Scranton or North Sound Road, in latter times, he was known throughout this island. No district was spared Tommy's influence. And people loved him dearly. Cayman Brac was no exception. In fact, his collapse occurred when he and Georgetown MLA, Member of Parliament, Georgetown West, were returning from a visit to Cayman Brac. He was patriotic to the absolute core. I don't know many people that drive around all the time with 2 or 3 Cayman flags flying from their vehicle. That's Tommy. He described himself, we called him in his early years Central Bad Man, but in his more mature years he was known as Japa or Family Man. But he described himself, in his own words, as world leader. And so today I pay tribute to a real Georgetown character, one who was a dear friend, and one who I miss and will miss for a very long time. I do believe that other members wish to pay tribute to some of the other community people from our community who have passed on in recent times, and I now invite them to do so. The honorable member from West Bay West.
Mr. Speaker, you have said much that is so very meaningful in regards to our people and those who have passed on. And in regards to the last remarks, I just want to add my condolences to all the Ramon family. Tommy was all that you have said. I don't need to repeat it. We stood on opposite sides politically most of the time. Sometimes. But we were always friends. And that is what is so important about our political life. That we can have differences and we can poke fun at one another. Of course, some people take it too far. Tommy knew where to stop. He knew where to stop. And he was just that kind of personality. Because he had a great personality. He was just that kind of personality. And of course, the community will miss him because of his various involvements around. He was a farmer too. I happened to purchase some pigs from him when I first started a small farm. And every time he saw me, he said, "You want more pigs?" I said, "No, Tommy, got enough." Good personality, a good person. As I said, I don't need to add to it. I want to draw attention to my own constituency and family. In fact, 98-year-old woman living here in Georgetown in the constituency of the leader of the opposition. She's a cousin. Funeral will be on Saturday at the Wesleyan Church in West Bay. And she's Miss Jenny. We all knew her by, although sometimes she called me cuz, and I called her the same thing. But she lived here in Georgetown for many, many years. She has now passed on. A good person too. Then many will know Mr. Orry, James Orrin Ebanks. My cousin, he's my grandfather's nephew, and he comes from a long, long line of huge family. Huge family. Only one sister left out of that family. He was a seaman first. Went to sea when he was very young. He told me 9, I think he said. He died at 101. And he worked last and retired from the Public Works Department in the General Maintenance Department. He was a good father, a good person in the community, and added his knowledge to our historical accounts. One thing I remember at one of my campaign meetings, someone said, if McKeever don't like my apples, he shouldn't shake my tree. So he reminded me the next night to say, I shook the tree, Benson shook the tree, and a couple more shook the tree, and you're not going to have apples left. That was his retort and advice to me. Of course, I used it too. But he was a good man. He's a good man. Right on Watercourse Road in my constituency. And I had a younger man who was ill for some time, Mr. David Ebanks. He was a special person, loved sports. And while he was sick, I didn't expect him to pass away. And his funeral will be next week, as Mr. Orry's will be next week as well, next week Saturday, one in the morning, one in the evening. Unfortunately, for our family, a cousin, Mr. Alfredo Anderson, struck down by a stroke, and within 2 days passed away. A young man, 62. I remember him well. We grew up together. A grandnephew of my grandfather, so we're close family, both sides. One of Cayman's best painters. And we're losing some of them. And we have to import so many. But one of our best painters, Alfredo, was. And not sure yet when his funeral will be. And so we want to pass on. There's been others in the community, of course. These are all directly in my constituency. except for Cousin Jenny, who's in town. And so we want to pass on condolences to all of the family and hope that light perpetual shine on their souls.
The Honorable Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I too want to offer sympathies to the late Tommy Ramon. I think I can comfortably say I was a friend, and even closer friend to his daughter, Shanice, that you referred to. And I know the good leader of the opposition and the rest of the PPM family will get up and give sympathies as well. So I'm going to limit it to asking the country to send prayers to his immediate family, siblings, but particularly to his great-grandchildren, grandchildren, and children. Because it's been a difficult time for the whole family of the Ramones, particularly under the circumstances of his passing. I just want to say, also in respect to this, that I'm praying for my colleague, the member from Georgetown West, as I know this has been a difficult time for him. I understand the circumstances of when the last moments were with Tommy, and each and every one of us have a special bond with each other. And I know sometimes we will show our strength and don't show our emotions, but I know that his heart is heavy. And I pray for you, my brother. I pray for you. Mr. Speaker, I also want to offer sympathies to the family of the late Miss Mavis Vernell Clark, another major symbol within the Georgetown context and the greater Cayman Islands. And I ask the country to pray particularly for her children, Al, Rex, Timmy, Rodney, Sharon, Charlotte, Shireen, and Lisa, as they have yet again lost a parent in a very short space of time. Mr. Speaker, I also want to send my sympathies out to a classmate of mine that I've recently lost, Miss Jacinta Nelson. May the Lord be with her family, her loved ones, and her friends. And to wrap it up, Mr. Speaker, I think this is a time that we should, particularly around the holiday season and with the new year coming, that we take the opportunity to go and see our seniors. Go see those who are bedridden or stuck at home due to age or other disabilities, because nobody knows what tomorrow holds and what's God's plan. Before you know it, somebody could be gone and we've missed the opportunities, and I say that to myself as well, Mr. Speaker. So with those few names and those who may have not been mentioned, I send on behalf of my family and the good people of Georgetown Central, my prayers are with you all through these difficult times. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, if you would indulge, I was searching my papers, couldn't find the next person, but there's another person, Mr. Don Smith, who I had the sad duty to do the obituary Saturday morning, but he passed away, and he was a long-time employee of the water authority from the days that I was chairman and minister, so many, many years. And he passed away, I think, suddenly. But he was one of our careful and well-experienced heavy equipment operators. Worked for years from the days of Mr. Hill, who was deputy director at times at the Water Authority. Certainly want to put down in Hansard our remembrance of him.
Madam Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with your kind indulgence, I'd just like to read and adapt as I read a poem which I'd like to dedicate to Tommy. Obviously, there have been several in Cayman, one in Little Cayman who have gone. They have already received expressions, certainly from myself as well as from my colleague, the member from Cayman West. But I thought it would be remiss of me not to put on record a poem of tribute to Tommy and his family. Ramones have had a long relationship with them, but also I know how close they were to the PPM family, and especially if you permit me to break the rule on this occasion and say David, because I think the record ought to reflect who his brother from another mother was. And so I thought of what would be appropriate, and I will try to adapt it as I read it, Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence. Mr. Speaker, Tommy was the sort of man that the flag could boast about. He was the sort of man that most cannot live without. He was the type of man that was really a Caymanian man. The head erected and shoulders squared when it was necessary. Clean-minded fellow, just and fair, that all men picture when they see the glorious banner of the Caymanian flag flown free. He was a sort of man, the flag now exemplifies, the kind of man we really want the flag to symbolize. The loyal brother to a trust, the big unselfish soul and just, the friend of every man and woman oppressed, the strong support all that's nothing less than the best. The sturdy chap, the banners meant where it flies to represent. He was a sort of man the flag supposed to mean, the man that all in fantasy wherever it was seen, the chap that's ready to fight whenever there was a wrong to right, a friend in time of need, the doer of daring deeds, the clean and generous, handsome man, the real Caymanian man. And just as a word of caution, if you Google, you won't find exact words, because I did as I asked. Adopted, and I give this to my good friend, not of me personally, but for the 8 years that I was with the PPM, an even dearer soulmate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I too rise to offer condolences and those in our community who have passed on recently to their families. The Honourable member from West Bay Central spoke about West Bay West spoke about Alfredo, who was a neighbor of mine growing up on Northwest Point. And so it was very sad to hear about him, and I offer condolences to his entire family. Mr. Speaker, it's been a tough couple of weeks in the constituency of Georgetown North, and in particular, Rockhole. First, we had Miss Jenny Ebanks, who the member from West Bay West spoke about. Ebanks' niece, Smith Horton, who passed at 98 years of age from Diaz Lane. I want to offer condolences to the entire family, but in particular to my old schoolmate Fabian and to her granddaughter Hortensia, who is a great supporter of mine. And then just not even 100 meters up the road, Miss Len Rose Smith, who we call Miss Lynn, her husband that we all would know as Dave Removal, Mr. Dave Smith of Dave's Removal. Miss Lynn was a cherished member of the community. Used to work at Norberg Bakery in the days, and anyone that knew her never went hungry. She always took care, while she was able, of anyone in the community who needed help. And she will certainly be missed. And I send my condolences again to the entire family, and in particular the brothers Andy, Andrew, and Randy, and also their granddaughter, Christy Foster Johnson, whom I know very, very well. And Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, and it certainly was in the forefront of my mind, that they say things happen in threes, but never in a million years did I think the third one would have been my friend Tommy. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to say a few words, if you don't mind. So Tommy, as you said, was a renowned Caymanian, a loyal supporter, and has been a steadfast ally throughout most of my political journey, always standing by my side with unwavering commitment. But beyond his loyalty, Tommy was truly a man of simple pleasures. His appreciation for the beauty of everyday life and the way he lived his life authentically have inspired many of us to cherish what truly matters. His kindness, his sense of humor, and genuine spirit embodies the values we all aspire to uphold. As we celebrate Tommy, let us honor his contributions, not just as a friend and a supporter, but a champion of the simple life that connects us all, including people from all walks of life. Thank you, T, for your friendship and your dedication. You were a true friend, and I am grateful to have had you in my life. So, we're a leader, wherever you are, whoever you've cornered to talk politics, save me a seat in the corner.
Mr. Speaker, I too would like to remember Don Smith, brother of Jesse and Ophiel, the uncle of our Olympian Michelle Smith. Very nice man, never failed to say hi. Alfredo, like what the leader of the opposition just said, was 100 meters down the road. But his father, the late Calvin Anderson, and my father, Clive Glidden, the late Clive Glidden, were best friends. Alfredo and I would walk out from Truth for Youth to Capital Traders, which was right next to Bada, which was right next to Miss Naomi's flower shop, Gunter's Market, Comart, Wilco. Alfredo and I had the honor, and we've talked about it, to sit in my father's store and to listen to Armand Panton, Vassell Johnson, the late Clarence Flowers, and my father all sit and talk about different topics. Some things Alfredo and I talked about when we saw each other. I saw him a few days before in A.L. Thompson, and the last thing I said to him, both of us got to lose these bellies that we have. And we laughed. Very peaceful man. All he ever wanted was to paint and to get a fair chance in our country to make a decent dollar, to be given a fair chance to get to workplaces. Also, a young man just died last week, or this weekend, Kamar Terry, 19 years old. He was my opening batsman. He was my bowler, but his love was basketball. My daughter calls him one of her babies because he came to her for tutoring on his own. So these are people that we have to remember, all good people. And I would like to say to other young people, please be careful. Life is good, no matter how hard we may think it is. Thank you all very much.
The Honorable Minister for Wellness and many other subjects.
Outside this room. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to give my condolences on behalf of the Ramon family, in particular, the passing of Tommy Ramon, and who I call Japa. If one can go back many years, some 30 years, in terms of, I don't think anyone could mention five-a-side without mentioning the name Tommy Ramon and David White, if I may so call him that in this hall, and hippie whalers, and you know, the most charismatic football five-a-side team that you could ever meet. They were feared, and you know, you didn't want to know you were going in the finals against hippie whalers with Tom and David. And I know the relationship. I frequent the area along with many others in here I shall not name, where Tommy hangs out. Flags on the car. One of the best for Cayman in politics, although we knew his leaning. He asked me just a few weeks ago, before his passing, to consider some things, you know, going into the next election. And that was our conversation. He has been at me. He called me regular, and some of the things to be considered going in the next election. I had to remind him that I also knew his brothers and his close friends. Always talked about Joey, always talked about, if I can call him Joey today, and David. And I had to remind him that I still had a history of almost 50 years knowing both of them. And I just want to say that I smile, Mr. Speaker, because Tommy's good friend Donald and Donald took a trip off the island. Donald doesn't have the type of phone that can actually transfer pictures to me, so he had to actually take Tommy's phone and try to transfer them to me. And that took them 2 weeks for them to be able to transfer 10 pictures, because they all wanted me to see these pictures. And I still have the pictures and from Tommy's phone. And anyhow, it was sad to hear of his passing, and I really sent Georgetown West member a message from a long time ago when I heard it, because I know how close, I know what friendship is. I mean, even with me, I mean, the people that I hang with, our relationships are over 50 years old. We grew up together. I know what that means, to have them there day in and day out. batting for you in many regards. So please register my condolences again on the passing of Tommy Ramon, his immediate family, and his extended family. God bless you all.
The Honorable Minister for Youth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise today to register my condolences to those many families who have had a loved one who has passed away. But I'm just going to touch on three persons, Mr. Speaker. But while I did not know Tommy as well as the others who have spoken about him, I think every single person in this country who drives a car has had an experience with Tommy, some way, shape, or form. Tommy was probably the slowest driver I ever knew on the road. But I believe Tommy drove slow, sir, because he wanted to make people see how patriotic he was. He wanted to make sure people saw those flags, sir. That's the only reason I could figure out, because I had some very frustrating times sitting in traffic with Tommy. 40 cars ahead, leading the charge, you know. I don't know where he was going, but certainly he was going there very slow. But as I did not know him, like I said, very well, I knew him enough to know that all the accolades that has been mentioned thus far to be true, sir. So I want to offer my condolences to his daughter and to the rest of his immediate family on his untimely passing. But for the District of Eastern, sir, I also want to offer condolences to the Rankin family who has had some passings of their own. Just 2 weeks ago, they laid to rest their brother Hutchin, the brother, a father, and an uncle. 2 weeks ago, they laid him to rest, and he was known as one of the best steel workers this country ever saw. And while they were dealing with that death, another of their brother passed away, and he's going to be laid to rest this Sunday too. His name is Quelland. He spent some time working for the government at Public Works. And I remember the first day out of high school that I went to Public Works to work. He was working on the front end loader. He said, "Get up here, boy." And he put me sitting on the side. He said, "I'm going to teach you how to drive." This thing was just past 17 years old, sir. 16, just past 16. And by the end of the day, I was operating the loader and he was sitting on the side. But I just want to, again, offer condolences to the Rankin family for the passing of the two brothers. May their souls rest in peace.
The Honorable Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to offer my heartfelt condolences to Tommy's family, his daughter, Shanice, his grandchildren, his siblings, Miss Beryl, Lolo, and his other siblings, and his other extended family members. Tommy was a true and loyal friend to all of us in the official opposition. When we would meet oftentimes on a Tuesday after work, the discussions were always around politics, which we all know he was passionate about. Even though David and Chris were like his brothers, and Joey was his hero, and you, Mr. Speaker, was his premier. I was his friend, whom he respected and loved. I will miss Tommy immensely. And CN will never be the same without him sitting in his seat, which has been identified as Japa's corner or Tommy's corner. Rest easy, my friend.
Honorable Member for Savannah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to extend my sincere condolences. As we know, we've recently witnessed the passing of many friends and loved ones, and to this extent, I take a moment to recognize the following. Mrs. Yvonne Keller of Savannah, she passed away in November. I wish to extend my sincere and heartfelt condolences to her mom, Miss Zelda Keller, her 3 children, Roberta, Bobby, and Krista, and grandchildren, and to her cousin, sister, Dale Hill. They lost a beautiful mom. Another sad and sudden passing in our community on Thanksgiving weekend in our community is our beloved Mrs. Lemore E. Banks. She was special. To her daughters, Teresa, Wendy, and Lori, and her grandchildren, I know they are heartbroken and grief-stricken. It's been a difficult time for many, and I wish all to know they remain in our thoughts and prayers. To all others throughout the islands who have lost loved ones, we feel your pain. To the family of the late Alfredo Anderson, Alfredo and my late brother Al were great friends. And may his beautiful soul rest in peace. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Prospect.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to express my heartfelt condolences to a number of persons who have passed on, and I would like to publicly acknowledge and again give strength and love to the family members of the late Miss Nelda Sarita Ebanks, who passed away in November. She is a Prospect constituent and the late wife of Mr. Lemmy. I send sincere condolences to her daughters, Samantha and Brigida, and her sons, Lemmy Jr. and Steve. I became rather close with Miss Sarita during the 2021 campaign, veering off a road, and I visited a number of times. She and I had numerous conversations by phone, and I know one thing, she was a staunch listener to Radio Cayman, and she definitely kept up to date and up to speed with everything that was going on once that radio was on. So my sincere condolences to the family. Also, Miss Larissa Beatrice Webb at Law. I send sincere condolences to the extended family, her daughters, granddaughters, Dr. Luana Lloyd. We have Miss Deanna, Miss Adriani, and persons will recall her back in the earlier days of this big white Cadillac that she was infamously known to drive around in the shop there, where people hung out for long hours at a time. But again, she was very instrumental in a guidance, a true partner with the Webb family, and extension to many people who would have visited the store. And in her later years, definitely very switched on, very, very instrumental in where I am today. And I want to publicly acknowledge that, and by extension to her family. The late Mr. Selford Christie, many would have known this gentleman in the construction trade, electrician. He had a stroke. I know him. I can see him right now in one white van. And I share heartfelt condolences, having a professional relationship with Mr. Christie for years in the industry of being with immigration, even back in the day. And he was one of those early settlers from Jamaica that came to the Cayman Islands, made the Cayman Islands his home, and definitely contributed to the construction industry with his trade. I also would like to express heartfelt condolences in the loss of my dear friend and sister, Miss Jolene Daisy Miller, a young lady that's gone too soon. Shannon Miller, the entire execution sound, has lost an angel. She battled cancer for years, but her light and her spirit never faded. And I would just like to send up prayers and strength for the entire execution sound and everyone that Jolene has left a mark on. Thank you, and may God bless.
The Honourable Member for Georgetown East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise also to express heartfelt and sincere condolences to Tommy Ramone's family. Mr. Speaker, I certainly did not know Tommy as well as you did, the leader, deputy leader, and my colleague from Georgetown West. Your experience and years of friendship with him makes mine pale in comparison, because while I can say I knew of Tommy Ramone, but I did not know him until after 2013 when I was first elected to Parliament. And I remember even from those days from 2013, he was a central feature in the elections. He was helping and doing a lot of things. And I can remember, and one of the great things I remember about Tommy, if there was something that he could do to help you, he'd do it. And sometimes just didn't even ask. He just went ahead and did it. And I recall 2017, the two elections that I've been through where he was such a central part of our campaign, working for us and doing so many things to help us through it all. I smiled and felt really good inside when someone mentioned, the fact that his truck was so decorated with the Cayman flag, and he rode that truck around, proud of it. Mr. Speaker, if I had to take one word from the dictionary to describe Tommy, that would be patriot. He was a patriot to the core, and he displayed it in so many ways. And he was such a friendly, outgoing man. And I just remember how torn apart I was the evening when word came to us that Tommy had passed away. I said, it can't be true. And, well, time passed and I found out that it was true. And honestly, I grieved for several days, because I remember it. I remember attending some of the places where you all go to. I attended too, which shall remain nameless. But they were always fun times as well. I mean, we had great times of laughter and enjoyment together. And I will certainly miss that. I certainly will miss Tommy. And I send my deepest condolences to his family. I know they continue to grieve. And I'm going to miss him in 2025 when that election comes around. And I think certainly for us here, the progressives, we all will feel that. We will all feel the loss then because of his great support, encouragement, and help to us all in the elections. So I say, Tommy, rest in peace. You deserve it. And I hope you deserve to rest in peace. I'll leave it there. So I hope that the light, perpetual light of God's mercy will shine upon him, and that he will rest easy, and look forward to seeing him someday too in heaven, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Georgetown West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to offer condolences to all families who are suffering right now in these hard times, and a few were mentioned today. Sarita, Miss Sarita, there wasn't a night that passed that I didn't get a good night image from her every night. And the last day Tom and I went came back, we spent with her son Lem. So, I mean, pass on condolences to her entire family. Miss Vernell, we've known Miss Vernell for forever, and my daughter is like her daughter. I mean, my sister is like her daughter-in-law because Jennifer has been with Rex and has 2 children with Rex, and we've known that family for so long. So, I mean, I'm offering condolences to Miss Vernell family. And then Miss Jen. Miss Jen, I've known for forever. My daughter is her granddaughter. Jolly, Miss Jen's daughter, Jolly, is the mother of my daughter. So I've known Miss Jen for forever. And I would like to offer condolences to Amberzine, Donovan, Jolly, and Phoebe. They were all in our prayers, but I'll just save a few extra words for Tommy, because I offer condolences to all I just want to offer to all of Tommy's family on this very sad time. Tommy, I'm going to say that obviously Tommy, the Ramon family is Tommy's family. That's the number one family. But if there was ever an adoption without official papers, my family adopted Tommy. He was a son to my parents, and he was a brother to my brothers and sisters, and that was forever. We first met Tommy when Tommy was a forklift driver on the port, the warehouse, and that was in the late 1970s, and we've been friends since over 45 years. And with Christopher and I being so close to Tommy, obviously our interests were similar, especially in politics and in football. And from the days of, in 1983, the early 80s, when we were campaigning and supporting Dr. the Honorable Linford Pearson, Mr. Norman Bowden, the Honorable D. Kurt Tibbetts, right up to yourselves, the Honorable Sir Alden McLaughlin, and the Honorable Joey Hugh. He loved everybody for PPM, but he had special places for Premier. Well, sorry, I got to get out of that habit. And Joey. And he loved Barbara, he loved Roy, anything to do with PPM. I remember a trip, Tommy, Irish, and me went to Cayman, and we were over there, and for some reason, all he wanted to do was to go visit Mose. We ended up going to Mose's office, we took pictures with Mose, and he was showing them off to everybody. So he loved everybody, but he had a special place for PPM members. And then with the football, we tended to play for the same football team. We ended up playing for Pearls with the member from West Bay North. And I'll say that, excuse me if I say Bernie Bush. We played for Pearls, and the thing about Pearls, now everybody loves to see goals, so they used to turn out in thousands to watch Pearls play. But the problem with that, it was the goals going against us. Sometimes by halftime we were all 12-15 down, but the crowd came out to watch. And then Tommy came to Christopher and I one day and said he wanted to form a 5-a-side team. So we got together and we decided we were going to do it, and it was mainly Ramones that played in that team, Muscle and all them, Stoker, in a 5-a-side team, and we named it Hippie Whalers, Hippie after Tommy, because that was one of his many pet names that they used to call him, and then Whalers after Bob Marley. And as the member from Bordentown East said, we were very popular because every match we turned up, we had a Bob Marley jacket on, and when we took it off, we had a different Bob Marley shirt. And we had the music blazing, Bob Marley music blazing. So anything we did, it seemed to be together. I know that, and I would like to say honestly, that there's no way, and Christopher and I would never and could never have a more loyal friend than Tommy. We wouldn't want another friend. I'm going to finish just by saying everybody loved Tommy, not only his blood, but everybody loved Tommy. But I just want to single out one person that from our early days with Tommy, there was a person who used to give advice to Tommy. He used to advise him, and he always, he just had good intentions for Tommy. And by us being with Tommy, it rubbed off on us. And we are grateful for that. We call him the B. George Watson. He loved Tommy. Tommy loved George. And we just want to thank George for not only helping Tommy, but in a roundabout way, helping us too. And we'll always love Tommy, and we miss him. Rest in peace, Chapa. Thank you.
The honourable member for Cayman Brac West and Little Cayman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to offer condolences to the families who have lost a loved one most recently. It would be remiss of me if I didn't rise to talk about some of the very Cayman Brac families that have lost loved ones. Before I do, I want to offer condolences to Tommy's family. David mentioned one of his very last visits to Cayman Brac, and a wonderful time that we spent together with David. And the one thing that I'll always remember from that visit was the smile that he not only left with, but the smile he left in the area that he vacated, because everybody that was there that talked to him had a really pleasant experience and was talking about Tommy for the rest of the afternoon about some of the things. The smile, I call it a Caymanian smile, which is a Cayman Brac smile. And the two families that I want to mention who have recently lost loved ones have that same type of bright smile. I'm sure my colleague, the Premier, will agree that these two families have a legacy that has been left, because both Clarence Ebanks and Leonie Sanford have left beautiful families that are givers and part of the
thread that keeps the Cayman Brac community together. Clarence Ebanks was the man that when you met him, if he could do something to help, or if you needed a specific helping hand, you called and he came, and he was there for everybody in the community, Eastern District and Western District. I want to also say that his family moves on with that same type of outward commitment. Leonie Sanford family is the same thing. She gave every day, working at the hospital, working, raising her children as a single mom, and bringing along with it a strength and a character that we all enjoyed. She's really well known for the sign she put in her front yard, that she had a road on the side that needed some help, and she had a big sign that she put out there, and it said, "No road, no vote." She got a road fixed. After Hurricane Paloma, she was a hero to many people, because she was, as we all were, waiting for electricity, but she had children in her house, and she went to the head who was in charge of repairing the lines, and she said, "I want you to look at the electrical pole next to my house, because if electricity is not there in 24 hours, I'm going to burn the pole down." And she started to take wood and bits and place around the pole to make sure he knew, and she was telling him that she was very serious. She got electricity. But that, along with a very, very special person and a special family from the Eastern District, or I say these in a joint voice with Premier Miss Dell Dixon and her family, again, is the heart and soul of that Eastern District and of Cayman Brac, and represents the type of community spirit and what she did for each person. It is well known on Cayman Brac that Miss Dell never locked her door. Never locked her door. And everybody knew that it was open for whatever you needed her to help you with, or if it was a meal that you needed, she was there to take care of her family and her friends in the community. Now, Mr. Speaker, we've lost these types of people, and I want to offer condolences and to let the families know that our thoughts and prayers will continue to be with them. Thank you, sir.
The honourable member from Newlands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to join with members who have spoken today to express condolences to the family members who have lost loved ones in our country. Mr. Speaker, I will start with a constituent of mine who, although he wasn't born in Cayman, he spent the better part of a lifetime here and was a part of the community in this country. Married, very lovely Caymanian. And I'm speaking, Mr. Speaker, about a gentleman who was a very good friend of my father's, and a friend of
all of his friends. And as it happens, as you grow up, they become a friend of yours as well. I'm speaking about Mr. Gladstone Trigger Black, affectionately known as Trigger, or Triggs. Mr. Speaker, a true gentleman, a hard-working man, a man that cared about family and human beings generally. And I know, Mr. Speaker, there is a domino game that goes on in Savannah. Although he lived in Newlands, there's a domino game that goes on in Savannah. If not every week, it nearly so. And he featured large there. So there, I know that he's being missed at that domino game. Mr. Speaker, I remember when, well, let me say one of my fondest memories of him is the years that he had a food supply business. And I would pop in to visit him, and oftentimes it was with another close friend that we lost as well, that again was one of my father's friends and became one of my close friends, and dearly loved and missed Mr. Derek Bogle, who you will certainly be aware of, both of them. Mr. Trigger would be sitting there, or Triggs would be sitting there at his dinner table doing his business books. And one of these, I had to be the biggest and oldest calculator I have ever seen. With it had a drum of paper that I swear was about a foot. And he was flying along there, his fingers are dancing on this calculator, and this calculator is just spitting out paper, and there's reams of paper all over, curled up around the dining room table. And I would say, Triggs, what are you doing? He said, my boy, a busting tail. So, to Miss Elsie and the family, extend our special condolences. I know Triggs is up in heaven, probably either busting tail on that calculator or finding the nearest domino game. Mr. Speaker, I want to also associate myself with the condolences offered by MP for Savannah in respect of the recent loss of Miss Lamore Ebanks. That was an absolute shock to all of us in the community, and I want to offer condolences to her daughters. Both her actual daughters, Teresa and Wendy and Lori, and then there were some others too that were basically her adopted daughters who had recently lost their own mother, Rosie and Flo. And I know what a shock it was for them, and the grief that they all suffer. So we offer our thoughts, prayers, condolences, and full support to them. Mr. Speaker, I also want to join with other colleagues here in extending condolences to Ms. Farnell's family. A lot of I don't know all the siblings, but a lot of them have either been classmates of mine or I've worked with them, and I know them, love them, care for them. Rex was a classmate, good friend. Al, incredible Caymanian artist, incredible talent.
Lisa, many others. But also want to join with, I think, several mentions of Miss Jen and extend condolences to her family. Phoebe was a good friend in school and has ever been. So I join in offering condolences to them as well. Mr. Speaker, I also wanted to extend condolences and perhaps provide my own little anecdote in relation to Tommy. Tommy was, and I so appreciated the comments that you made to begin this process of recognizing Tommy, and others as well. You know, the description of Tommy as being one of those incredible Caymanian characters and a patriot, and perhaps we could extend that to son of the soil. All sorts of descriptions, I think, of similar ilk would be appropriate for Tommy. A real true Caymanian that cared about this country. I don't remember a time that I didn't know Tommy. I had the benefit of sort of growing up in both Newlands, out in the country, as well as in the metropolis, in town, and spending time down around Hogstye Bay, swimming, and you know, you got to meet and become friends with so many people. I think I probably met him sometime in the mid-70s or somewhere around there, maybe a little bit later. And obviously I knew him in school as well. So Tommy was just one of those characters that he was disarming, you know, and he was somebody that you could easily talk to. I recall the last time I spoke to him, which was, I think, maybe a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months ago. I pulled into the yacht club by the restaurant, and it was sort of mid-evening, hardly anybody around. Started to get out of my truck, and this vehicle pulled up behind me. And, you know, we all know that Cayman is a very safe place, but you never know sometimes. When these things happen, I sort of looked around and did a laser focus on who the driver was, and I couldn't quite see who the person was, but I saw this gigantic white mustache, and I thought, there can be no other. This has to be Tommy. So he jumped out, and as we did so many times, you know, we just struck up this conversation and stood at the back of the truck, one foot up on the bumper, chatting with him for, I'm sure it was probably an hour. It might have been longer than that because, as I said, easy to talk to and a good man. So I cherish that last conversation I had with him. When I heard about his passing, I was shocked, and I immediately thought about the member from Georgetown, or for Georgetown West, because I knew how close they were, how close he was to many of us in here, I guess, but in particular, that member. So my thoughts were with him. And then, within minutes, I think, I found out that he had been with him and traveling with him when he started to have his medical incident. And of course, that couldn't imagine, Mr. Speaker, what the member had been going through at that time. So from then and going forward, our thoughts are certainly with his family, his daughter, and the member for Georgetown West, and his brother, and the rest of the family, because I know they're very close. So, Mr. Speaker, for all those members, including the young man who recently lost his life, I referred to that incident or that accident in a contribution on the traffic amendment. At the time, I realized that I had neglected to offer condolences to his family. So I was grateful that the member for West Bay North mentioned him. The loss of a young man with so much potential, and the sadness that his family must be dealing with. In addition to, of course, the sadness we will all feel, Mr. Speaker, for many people, there is an absolute gratitude for having known them and for the kind of people they were and the things that they contributed to society and to the country. So, Mr. Speaker, I offer condolences to all people who are suffering, feeling grief at this time. And may God provide comfort and bless them.
The honourable member for West Bay South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be brief. I join in offering condolences and sympathies to all those that have passed since this House, Honorable House, has last met and have been mentioned so far. One that I would like to mention from West Bay that was near and dear to my family was Mitchell Olson Ebanks, otherwise known as Ja Mitch. Died at the age of 72 after a long battle with cancer. This isn't just someone that you just know of in the community who musical talents and achievements are well known, but this was actually a family friend. When we lived in New York, he used to come by my dad's apartment and practice his tunes. He had a jingle that he called Calypso Boogie, and he would play on his guitar, and he would say, "Young blood, how's this sound?" and strum his guitar. And he would actually then, we'd go to a concert later, and he'd actually perform what he actually practiced. And to see, being at that young age and see a Caymanian on the music scene in New York and had an impression, it just goes to show there's no limit to what our people can achieve once they find their gifts, they pursue their gifts, and they display them on the world stage. And his mark locally, I think, is legendary. So I would pass on condolences. Once again, I was at the service, but pass on condolences again, not just to his family, but to the musical community in general. And another that had an impact in this one specifically in the constituents of West Bay South. From an employment standpoint, was the passing of a legal giant, Darrell Myers. His contributions to jurisprudence are well known. Establishment of the firm Myers and Alberger. Many of my constituents were at the service. The funeral was a double because Mr. Myers passed away in September, and then his wife shortly departed in November. So it was a double funeral. And the impact was very real, not just on the family, but actually on those who had been in his service and worked with him as a colleague for decades. The description of his legal abilities at the service, I think, are nothing short than not just inspiring for young Caymanians to have listened to and be able to absorb and seen what that firm has turned to and grown, but also it's instructive of how to conduct yourself as an attorney. So with that, Mr. Speaker, and all those we have lost, and maybe one other last thought, for all those who may be hospitalized now, we have our thoughts and prayers that they pull through. So the next time this House meets, we don't have to mention their names. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member from Bordentown West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And, you know, as I was listening to the members inside the South speak, I actually had a different experience with Tommy, being that my first election that I ran was a member of the UDP, and Tommy was a diehard PPM. So I remember one night after a campaign meeting in Georgetown, he basically tell me, don't come back Georgetown. I must stay in Bordentown. But then I had to remind him that I actually grew up in Georgetown and I was actually a towner. And then he remembered me as a little fat boy that used to serve him at Champion House. So as soon as my credentials for towns were solidified or bona fide with him, he gave him a pass to stay in Georgetown, seeing that I used to grow up at Champion House. But you know, I want to give condolences to his family, because I can tell you one thing that the PPM always had that the UDP didn't have was some diehard supporters. And whenever you went to town, you would meet those supporters, and Tommy was always at the front of it. Maybe that's one of the reasons why he left the UDP too, because we didn't have supporters like Tommy. Mr. Speaker, the member for Prospect touched on earlier, Mr. Christie, Silford Christie. One of the person who came here, integrated into our community, and was a nation builder. As a matter of fact, one of the buildings he actually worked on when he first came to Cayman is this very legislative assembly that we're actually standing in today, where he did electrical work, and also the courthouse across the road. So it kind of gives you an idea in terms of what it was, or how long he's been in Cayman, to have been here to work on both the legislative assembly and the court's office. And I want to send condolences to his wife Debbie, his daughter Sharina, Belinda, Basil, Matthew. I know at the end of the day, no amount of words can ever replace, the loss of Mr. Christie. Always well dressed and was an avid domino player. Last weekend, we pay respect to his memories, and the member for Bordentown East and also the member for Eastern was also there to pay tribute and pay respect to Mr. Christie. And also want to touch, Mr. Speaker, on a member that the member for Newland spoke about, which was the late Trigger Black. And when he had passed, I'd actually sent a message to his wife, Miss Elsie, and just want to read it to members for the record. Dear Miss Elsie, I'm so very sorry to hear of your loss with the passing of Mr. Trigger. My grandmother, the late Miss Mack of Champion House, spoke very highly of him and held him in very high esteem. I also had the pleasure of playing dominoes with him many times and remembered his calm disposition. Even when his partner got upset, he always held his cool. I know that no words can assuage the grief that you are feeling at this time, but I will pray that our good Lord gives you and your family comfort in the memories you shared with Mr. Trigger. To the heaven, we entrust his soul. To the earth, we entrust his body. To those he left behind, we entrust his spirit, his calm disposition, and his decency. May his soul rest in peace and light perpetual shine. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Lord, the Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh. Blessed be the name of the Lord. We'll now take the luncheon suspension until 2:15. Before members leave, I can only make a suggestion. It's a matter for members. But given the fact that we have 4 private members' motions, which we have not yet begun, might I suggest that perhaps the House sit a little later than the planned 6 o'clock so that members have an opportunity to ventilate them. I've been through them. They're all important motions. There's nothing trivial in any of these. So I think it would be a disappointment, really, if members didn't have an opportunity to deal with these motions. We started an hour late, and we've spent the last 2 hours dealing with other important things. But it's entirely a matter for members, not for me. I'm just merely making the suggestion. So you may ponder that over lunch, and someone take the initiative on it. Happy lunching.